Hello guys. Today, what we are going to learn is how to warm up and recruit your finger strength. Whether it's for training finger strength, endurance strength, for your bouldering session, your rock session, wherever. I will tell you the best way to warm up and recruit your forearm and finger strength so that you are prepared to train and well prepared. And we are going to go step by step with also teaching you everything that is happening at the physiological level while we are connecting. So you understand why you have to do it this way. All right, guys, what you need to know is that when you want to warm up and recruit fibers in your forearm, okay? What you need to know is that the forearm has muscle fibers, but they are of different types. There are slow fibers, fast fibers 2A, and fast fibers 2B, okay? And these will wake up or activate depending on the force you want to apply. For example, for writing, for doing crafts, whatever it is, or for writing, you will only use slow fibers. From that point of view, the slow fibers are always kind of half awake. Why? Because they are the fibers that function or get activated when you require little strength. A short announcement. Finger strength and Tindeq course lasts 5 hours. Finger strength planning course lasts 7 hours. The videos are already recorded, so if you want them, you can buy and watch them immediately. And if you also want to train with me, just write to me on Instagram, whether it's for the Tindeq finger strength courses, finger strength planning, or if you want to train with me. But when one climbs, one wants the slow fibers to wake up, and the fast fibers too, because the fast fibers are for strength, especially the 2B fibers, okay? So what needs to be done with this? That a warm-up must first start activating all the slow fibers and then all the fast fibers. Here is Henneman's principle, which states that as I apply more force, which is what I'm showing here, as I apply more force, I first start recruiting slow fibers. Then I begin to recruit fast fibers 2A, and finally end up recruiting my fast fibers 2B. And what you want in a way is that to recruit, forget about circulation, about this, about metabolism. No, things don't work like that. The central nervous system, which is ultimately what wakes up, because it's not the fibers, it's my motor neurons that are saying, okay, dude, we're going to have to send more stimulation to the muscle because that's what it needs. It comes from here, from my central nervous system. So from that point of view, the central nervous system is much more activated by the need for strength, not by the metabolism that is being activated. The metabolism is activated, but it's something secondary. So this method that I'm going to teach you is not the only one. There are many other methods, but all the methods you see ultimately aim for that, to activate the 2B fiber. So what I start doing first is using a dumbbell, where I can increase or decrease the tension. And the first thing I do is use the dumbbell with very low tension and do 10 reps. Then I do 10 more, and I will show you why. Why? The first thing I do is start to activate my slow fibers. Slow fibers, okay? So my slow fibers start to activate. And that, what does it mean? Very little strength, but I try to do it faster because one of the things you need to know is that there is much more activation when there is speed, okay? So I do about 10 with one hand, another 10 with the other hand, another 10 with the other hand, until reaching about 30 to 50, depending on how I feel that day, okay? With this, we start to activate our slow fibers. And since our slow fibers are mainly of a glycolytic oxidative metabolism, meaning they break down glucose but need oxygen. For that, we need to open vessels. And that's important because we are opening vessels so that our slow fibers are the ones that start to activate, okay? So when I've done a lot and I feel like a certain activation, you start to feel it. You feel that the hand, like it activates, and the forearm also starts to increase in volume. You move on to what we are going to use now. In my case, what I am using here is the 2025 block, which is a monoboard, along with a Tindeq that's up here, Maybe you can't see it, but just so you know. And I'm going to start first on the 25 staggered. What I'm telling you is not a rule. It's not like, oh, you have to do it this way. No, it's not a rule. It's what I'm using with my students, of which I have many, by the way, and everyone is using this methodology. And I think that of all the ones we've been doing and testing over the last 3 years, it's the one that has given the best results, but it doesn't mean it's the only one. All right. I start first on the 25 staggered. So here I already have it hanging. And the 25 is as it should be, okay? So I already have my block. 20-25 on 25 with my Tindeq. Here I have it, as it should be. I need to apply magnesium. Don't stop using magnesium, otherwise the wooden monoboards tend to wear out. I need to apply magnesium. I put it here in lift data. And I have to do about 40% of my maximum strength. That 40% isn't exactly 40%. For example, I use 20 kilos and 20. Kilos is less than my 40%, okay? And why is that? Because I need a very low load, little force, because what I want now is to activate my slow fibers. And by activating my slow fibers, my capillaries open, and I start to recruit slow fibers. I want the slow fibers, and 20 kilos is fine for me. Some people say, no, it has to be 40%, but it can be 35, it can be 45, but more or less that percentage. In my case, I only use 20. I set it to reset there and start with 20. So what I'm going to do now is pull for about 10 seconds with my right hand, right, and then switch to the left hand and pull for 10 seconds in increments of 25. And I feel that it's very loose. I feel that 20 for me is almost nothing. It's very, very relaxed, okay? And at the beginning, what you might feel is that the beginning is difficult. But then as you keep pulling, it becomes easier and easier. In fact, there, I have already increased more because it keeps getting easier for me. But I maintain the 20, and there, as you see in the curve of Penniman that is there in the recruitment curves, what I'm doing here is recruiting only my slow fibers, which is the theoretical part, because it's not exactly like that. Some fast fibers also start to recruit. It's not black or white. And what I'm going to do now is pull theoretically between 8 to 10 times with each hand. What I do here is check the total time. In my case, I do about 140 seconds, so I don't have to keep count with one hand. And with the other, let's speed things up to finish. And that's it. Yeah, and there I already reached 140 seconds, and what I have to do now is rest for 2 minutes. That is the protocol that we have. So, what I just did now, theoretically speaking, is recruit slow fibers. And the next step will be the second stage, where I will increase my strength a bit. It's said to be around 65%, but in a way, and looking at the chart, looking at the curves, I start to activate fast fibers there. What I did now is activate slow fibers and start opening vessels. But the vessels open because the slow fibers need is to say, hey, I need more blood, so open up vessels. And that will also help me increase the temperature. And that's why it's called a warm-up. All right, guys, let's move on to the next stage. All right, guys, in these 2 minutes, what I'm doing now, and I'm doing it, and I'll explain why. Because I'm old. So what do I need? It's hard for me. It's harder for me to recruit. When you're old, maximum strength decreases. So I have good maximum strength, but it's hard for me to recruit it. And that's what I tell the older folks, that they need more stimulation to become a good climber and to feel good for training or climbing. So I grab my dumbbell, I increase the tension, okay, about halfway, more or less, and I do it again. Obviously, I feel it stronger, but I try to do it as quickly as possible. Why do I have to do it quickly? Because there is greater recruitment if it's done with speed. So I go back to doing about 10 with each hand, about 10 with each hand. More or less, it's more of a feeling than counting them. If you want to count them, that's up to you. And what I do now is, since there's greater tension, greater load, and since I'm doing it with speed, that is causing recruitment. This is not useful for gaining strength, although there are some studies showing that it does. But what I'm using it for now is to recruit, to activate my fibers, to wake them up, so that my central nervous system says, hey, we need to send more signals, because that's what this guy needs, in this case, me. And I do about 10. I think that I'm doing well there. In fact, I'm already feeling my hand super, super active. And today, it's not that it's cold, but it's definitely not hot. It's like it must be about 20 degrees. And I already feel that this is activated. Then what I'm going to do is rest for a minute and then go again to the second stage with a staggered 25, okay? And this time, if I increase the intensity, which is what I'm going to do now, I'm going to increase my intensity. I was at 20, now I'm going to go to between 27 and 30. It means that if I increase the intensity, I have to lower the volume. Why? Because the fast twitch fibers type 2A, which are the ones I'm going to activate now, have good strength, but less endurance. So I have to increase the load, but I have to lower the volume. So what am I going to do now? Before, I would do about 10 seconds with each hand. Today, I'm going to do about 6, 7, 8, and instead of reaching 140 seconds in total, I'll reach, I don't know, 100, 110, 120, okay? So let's go. So what I do now is reset this. Again, to take the time, I reset it, take my block, and now I do. Between 27 and 30, about 7 seconds, I count it. It's not that I looked at it there. And then I switch to my other hand. What you will feel is that as your central nervous system was at rest, now it's activating. At first, it's a bit difficult to reach that load, those 27 or 30. But as I'm starting to recruit, and as my motor neurons are already waking up, and my fibers are also starting to generate tension, I begin to feel that. Look, notice I've already reached 31, 32, like it's nothing, but I stay at that level, okay? So I pull again, and I'm at 30, 31. I'm not going to go above that. And again, we see here the recruitment curve, and what we are is more or less at 60%, 55 to 60%, but that is based on the curve, and what it's indicating to me is that I'm already recruiting many slow fibers and I'm starting to recruit fast fibers type 2A. And I feel that my hand is activating. I feel that I have relatively more strength. I feel that now it's easier for me to pull 31. And the other thing you need to know is that since this is a recruitment, a warm-up, you shouldn't feel like you're getting exhausted, like you're getting pumped up or overexerted, but rather that you can push through. That it might be a bit challenging, but you shouldn't get exhausted. You shouldn't get overexerted, because if you're getting pumped up, it's because you're doing metabolic stress, and what I want is recruitment. I don't want to get tired. I don't want to produce fatigue. I just want my neurons to wake up, for my fibers to start contracting as they should. All right, and there I reached 120 combo, and what we're going to do now are some things we're going to change here on the manometer, and I'll explain why. All right, guys. So since I'm old and it's hard for me to recruit, what I do is increase the tension on my dumbbell, again to the maximum, okay? And in these 2 minutes of rest, I go back to pulling. It's hard for me, but I feel that despite the high tension, I can close my hand well. It's just that now it's always a bit harder for me. And I close. And now instead of doing 10, I do about 6 or 5. Why? Because high intensity, low volume. If we increase the intensity, we have to lower the volume. But I already feel that I'm active. I mean, I feel that despite the dumbbell being at maximum, I'm going to squeeze a lot. And the other thing, as fast as I can. Why? Because the faster you do it, the greater the activation. Especially if we want to reach our type 2B fibers, which are called fast fibers. Because besides generating strength, they generate speed. It's obvious, okay? So what I'm going to do now is that I did stage 1 in a staggered 25. I did stage 2 in a staggered 25. But I'm going to do stage 3 in 20. The block is designed for that because here I'm at 25. And I turn it around and it's already at 20, but I need to move the little strings a bit so that the 20 is more positive because here it's a bit negative. I pull it a bit from one side in case you want to buy it. It comes with instructions, guys. I'm going to make it a bit more positive. And there it fits well. So I rest a bit and we're going to go for the third stage. And we're going to do the third stage on a 20 strip, and I'll explain why. Okay, guys. All right, so I've rested. And why are we going to do it in 20? Because later I'm going to do the peak load on a 20 strip. So I not only want to warm up and recruit, but I also need to coordinate. Because motor neurons not only send signals, but they also have to send the signal in an orderly manner. To say, look, the range of motion is this, and we are going to send the signals for that range of motion. So one of the things I have to do is not just recruit, but also organize my motor neurons in such a way that they send the appropriate signal for that range of motion. And since I'm going to do my peak load on 20 strips, I want to warm up, recruit, and coordinate. Therefore, the best way for me to achieve the best peak load is to do it with the grip where I will later perform the peak load. That's why the third stage is on 20 strips. And why do I do the peak load on 20 strips? Because I am standardizing all the peak loads on 20, all the peak loads on 20, so that I have a standardization of the strip I want. And with that, I can monitor all my students and know what's happening with their performance curve. I don't change the peak load strip because it's the standardization. It's like the hemoglucotest for a diabetic. It's like the electrocardiogram for someone with a heart problem. I don't keep changing the what's it called? The test, but rather I standardize that same test for everyone, and from there I can draw conclusions. Obviously, these things are never black and white, but in this case, we are going to do it this way. So I grab my strip, go here again, reset, and here I pull. I'm going to pull up to 40. So I pull 40. 1, 2, 3. I release and pull up to about 40 more or less. I hold this well. 1, 2, 3, and I rest a bit. And why do I only pull for 3 seconds and now I'm even resting for 10 seconds? Because high intensity, low volume. It means that if I increase my intensity, I have to lower my volume. So I take it again here. I've already rested about 10 seconds. And 1, 2, 3. And at the beginning, reaching 40 was difficult for me. But now it's easier for me. And why is that? Because I'm recruiting. Because my motor neurons are waking up more and more. I'm getting better, sending better signals. And because at the same time, my motor neurons know that I'm going to be pulling all the time, on a 20 millimeter edge. So they are coordinating. All the motor neurons got together and said, all right, guys, we have to do everything this way to generate the greatest possible tension. So if you notice, I'm going higher each time. I count to 10, and how many times are we going to do this? About 8, 10 times more or less, okay? Remember that these are not standardized protocols that have to be, look, and there. In fact, I went up to 48, and I feel like I can pull a little more each time. 1, 2, 3. How long do I keep going up? Until I burst, until I pump up and get pumped. If I'm going up, I started at 40 and now I'm at 48, but I feel like I'm starting to pump up, to burst, to get pumped. I need to lower the load because what I want is to recruit, not to produce fatigue. If I produce fatigue, when I go to climb or when I go to train the FSD2, I'm going to have something against me. What will it be? Well, I warmed up, I recruited, but I got fatigued. How foolish. No, because I wanted to be in the best shape to do what I have to do afterward. So I keep going, and if I feel that I'm getting worn out, I lower the load. Or if, for example, here I'm at 45, 46, and I can't maintain those 3 seconds, I also lower it. In fact, I already think that I'm stabilized at about 46, 46, 45. I let go. And I already feel that my hands have warmed up and that my forearms have grown. I feel it. I feel it. Maybe it's a sensation. This isn't science, but I feel that my forearm is more swollen. And I feel that my hand is more active. Okay? So I keep going and I keep going. And there, if I feel that the successive loads that are appearing cause me to drop a bit, stop, because it means you're accumulating fatigue. In the case of older people like me, sometimes I repeat this third stage. I do 2 third stages with a couple of minutes. Why? Because it's harder for me to recruit. And why? Because I'm old. But it's a normal sensation and one can fight against it. I think I'm a good example. I've managed to stay relatively well for my age, and the students I have also, with an exercise like this, have improved a lot. So it does work. It works. So I pull again. And in fact, there I pulled up to 49, meaning I'm recruiting more each time. I can keep pushing this. But my left is a bit weaker. It's there at the limit. I'm going to do one more pull. If you notice, I've already spent several minutes in this third stage, but I think it's reasonable, and I pull again. What you pull in the third stage won't necessarily match your peak load, because afterwards, after this third stage, what you need to do is rest for those 2 minutes. And after those 2 minutes, go to recruitment. In my case, when I finish, I let about a minute pass. Then I do dumbbells, again at maximum, as fast as possible, about 6 times for a couple of times. And with that, we're ready. Okay? So I'm finishing my final recruitment exercise with the dumbbell, and I'm ready. So what's going to happen now? In these 2 minutes, I'm going to explain. What I do now is go to my Tindeq and head to a peak load. So I get here and press peak load. Okay? Peak load. I start a new session. I go to right, left. I select. Here I have many students who were assigned to me, but I go to Gonzo. Gonzo 20 millimeters, which is there. So now I press Gonzo 20 millimeters. And I already know that I'm on my 20 millimeter performance curve. I have a curve that I've been monitoring since March of 94. So I've been doing this for over a year, and I've seen everything that has happened. Let's see. I'll show you this later. I've seen everything that has happened since I trained to go to Cuba. Then how I returned from Cuba. Then how I trained to go to Spain for the first time. How I returned from Spain. How I trained to go to Spain for the second time. How I returned to Spain again. And now, this is the curve where I'm training for the first trip to Spain in 2025. And there I have the entire performance curve, and I see how I'm doing. If I'm doing well, if I'm doing poorly, what I need to do, what I shouldn't do. My performance curve, in a way, is observable within a year. And I can draw many conclusions about what I need to do based on each trip, okay? So what I do here is press start session. So let's repeat. I'm going to start with the direction. I did a first stage with 20 to recruit slow fibers. I did a second stage at 27:31 to recruit the remaining slow fibers and fast fibers type 2B. All of this is theoretical, but just so it's understood. Then I moved on to a third stage, which is more or less around 80%. And what I wanted was to recruit all the slow fibers, hopefully recruit almost all the fast fibers type 2A, and start recruiting type 2B fibers, trying to recruit them all. Above 80 or 85%, I am already recruiting almost all the type 2B fibers. But now comes the peak load. So the peak load, having already completed all these stages, plus some extra things to finish recruiting, according to what you can or want, I am now ready to do a peak load on a 20 millimeter edge, which is the edge I use as a parameter for my strength performance curve of. And based on what I achieve in that peak load today, I know what I need to do that day or how I'm doing, whether I'm improving, declining, staying stable, whatever it may be, okay? So we have to do the first, second, and third stages as best as possible so that I can achieve the best possible peak load, not necessarily the highest. No, oh no, I want to go up, up, up. Not the highest, but the most representative, because the low peak loads are also representative. For example, when I do strength and endurance work, I know that my peak loads will tend to plateau and decrease. So the fact that peak loads sometimes decrease doesn't matter. If I know how to interpret the strength performance curve of, in this case, what I want is for it to be as representative as possible of the training I'm doing at that moment, okay? So I'm going through a phase where I'm kind of stuck, but it's normal for what I'm training for, so hopefully it turns out well. One always wants it to turn out well, but sometimes it can't. So what I do now is take my 20 ruler. Again, okay? I prepare myself, I hold it well. I only have about 3 seconds to reach my peak load, and if not, I've just lost. I do something called a pre-recruitment, where I pull a little. And now I pull. With everything. 58. I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Today it seems like I'm doing well. Now, I'm going to pull with my left hand, which is weaker. Then I switch here. I must not forget, guys, I must not forget. Run here as I have a little seat. I do a pre-recruitment. And pull, pull. And that's what it has to serve. I have my right hand a little more than my left hand. And here I have my peak load, just like that, okay? So now what I do is save, save. I am already at Gonzo 20, so I click accept, save again, and there is my entire performance curve, which we will talk about another day, but I can zoom in and see what has happened recently. If you notice, I dropped a bit because of the training I do, and today I'm already going up a bit, and that's where we want to go, okay? I am about a month and a half away from going to Spain, so it's within the parameters that I should feel I am, that I should be doing. I should be averaging over 55. Today, 58. So all is well. But what we are going to do now, okay? New session again, Gonzo. We will wait 2 minutes and we will do a second peak load. Why? Because this peak load that I did was 100% my maximum strength. But the more I pull, and the more I push my central nervous system and my fibers, the more they are recruited. So it could be. In my case, that doesn't happen. But for most people, it should happen that the second peak load tends to be better than the first. And that doesn't mean there has to be a third one for it to increase, to increase, to increase. No, because remember that what we want is to recruit and not to fatigue. I think that 2 and a maximum of 3 peak loads is reasonable. In fact, there should be 2 minutes between one peak load and another, a maximum of 3. Why? What happens if I say, no, I want my peak load to increase and increase and increase because I want to be a titan? And Gonzo told me that the more peak loads I do, the more it will increase. And it's true, but that causes fatigue. So by the 4th peak load, it no longer increases. And not only does it not increase, but the peak load starts to drop. And why? Because they start to accumulate fatigue. So these things are not infinite. They have a limit. Remember that when you want to warm up and recruit, what you need is to warm up and recruit, not to fatigue. So I go for a second peak load because it might turn out better for me, and because that way I finish recruiting and I'm ready to climb, to train for whatever. I think more than 2 minutes have easily passed. It can be more than 2 minutes. It can be 3. I prepare myself. This has to be done with intention, guys. I do a small recruitment and hit 59, and there I pushed a bit more. In general, since I'm old, my second peak load isn't better than my first. Sometimes I do just one peak load because I know that's how it's going to be. But in this case, I improve a little. So what I do now is prepare myself. And there it also went up a bit. So that was my second peak load. Then I save it again, accept, save, and my curve goes away. But Here, there's a but. I have 2 peak loads on the same day, but if I put in too many peak loads, the curve tends to get a bit weird. I don't know if you noticed there, the curve at the end is a bit weird. So what I do, and I tell my students they have to do, is that they have to stick with the most representative one of those 2 peak loads they do. The most representative one is not necessarily going to be the highest. Why? Because sometimes you can cheat. For example, if I'm here, I'm going to put here, start session. I can go ahead and do a hammering, as they call it, and do a lot of load. But because you did a kind of hammer effect, then that can be, okay? I'm going to go again. Here I can see my curve that I'm already here. So if you cheated and did a hammering, that is not the most representative. Or if suddenly one hand was very unbalanced because you needed to compensate, that is, recruit more with one hand. In my case, for example, it's harder for me to recruit with the left. You stick with the most even one, and so on. And that's it, guys. It's that simple. This way of warming up and recruiting is based on science. Of course it is. It's based on having a final measurement that gives you enough information so that later you can train or do whatever with it. So it's super important that you learn how to do it. And if you have the Tindeq, also take this peak load measurement because it's essential to know how your performance is going and what you need to do. Guys, there's a lot more information about this, but before my dog starts barking hysterically because someone arrived, subscribe, hit like, and that's it, guys. A hug. Bye-bye.